broadcast. We are coast to coast. We are Marnell on iHeartRadio. Tremendous stuff going on over there at JiggyJaguar.com. Get a hold of us online. It's JiggyJaguar.com. And we have got a tremendous guest we are going to get to here in just a few moments here on our big broadcast. And thanks for joining us here on the big program. Check out JiggyJaguar.com for more information. That is JiggyJaguar.com. We are going to go to our first guest who is going to join us here on the telephone. And we are going to call them via the magic of the old Skype. The old Skype audio. And find us online at JiggyJaguar.com. We have got a great guest who is going to join us here in just a few seconds. And they have got a tremendous book, and we will talk to them.
This number is using RoboKiller to screen their calls. Please say your name.
Okay, well, then we'll do this. We will call them on the phone. And hopefully they pick up the phone. So.
Hi. This number is using RoboKiller to screen their calls.
So ridiculous.
Say your name and the purpose of your call, and I'll try to connect you.
We have a radio interview right now. So let's see if they pick up.
Thanks.
Hello, James.
Yes, indeed. How are you, my friend?
Okay, sorry, my RoboKiller.
It happens. People love the robocalls. Now, let's get into it here. We're live. So, talk to us a little bit about your book, my friend.
Well, let me explain it this way. While I was doing my doctorate in seminary, I was curious as to why a lot of the churches that I was familiar with and many that I were not familiar with were starting to lose members. And these churches used to be packed, and now they have empty seats. And I was just curious about why was this phenomenon happening. And when I started to dive into this, I learned that this trend was going on for 40 years. So I wanted to know, is there a cause and effect as to why this is happening? Is it something that the ministry is missing out on, or have people changed? Now, originally, I thought, okay, people are leaving the Christian faith to go to another faith. But what my research actually showed was people still maintain their faith. They still prayed. They still read the Bible. They still believed strongly in God and loved God. But they were shying away from churches. Part of it is because of the politics of the church. Others were disrespecting the church, and for those that are in the communities around these churches, there was no more a connection between the community and the church. Now, these are just some of the more profound factors, but there were many more besides that. Some of them were leadership issues where the leadership was fighting amongst themselves, like the deacons versus the pastor, and people had enough. Others were like, well, the leadership always insults us if we come up with an idea to help the church or help the community, and so they leave. And then there's this generational gap where young people, they don't want to sit in a building and have someone that's supposedly know more than them and experience more than them, and they have no say, and they're going to dictate down to them. Young people more want an interaction. They want to get out and be involved. They want some leadership to show them how to actually go out and serve the community versus sitting in a church and getting a lecture. So I may have talked enough. What are your questions?
Well, we have a great guest with us today. He joins us live here on our big broadcast. Marnell W. Love is with us. He has Why People Love God But Hate Church. And he joins us today here on our big broadcast, coast to coast and border to border on iHeartRadio as well. So Marnell, why did you decide to write this book?
Well, after I finished my dissertation, it was improved by the faculty at my seminary. I belong to a group of ministers that we meet once a month from around the area where I live. And I presented the findings to them just to get some reaction of, were they seeing some of the same things? Well, it generates so much interest. I thought, well, maybe other people are interested in this too. And as I talked with more people about my dissertation and the results, lay people start to get involved and say, yeah, I got some issues I want to explain to you. And so I thought, well, maybe writing this book will get our nation into a discussion of are we truly committed to God, or are we committed to just assembling, sitting there for an hour or 2 hours and going home and think nothing more about it? I really want people to examine themselves. Does my behavior really reflect Christ? Do I really have faith in Christ? And am I doing the things that Jesus requires me to do? So that's how the book came about.
We have got a great guest with us today. Marnell W. Love is with us. White people love God but hate church. He's with us today here on our big broadcast. Coast to coast and border to border on Spotify as well. So this book, incredibly well written. Talk to me a little bit about some reviews, feedback, criticism that you've got on the book so far.
Well, actually, I've gotten really 19 five-star reviews of people that have written their reviews on Amazon in great detail, which really surprised me. Usually I see reviews like one sentence or something like that. But a lot of people are really reading the book and getting deep down in the book and commenting on different chapters and different sections of it. Some people disagree with my research findings, but they really haven't talked about it a lot. Now, I've talked to some radio hosts about some of their disagreements, but they never really explain what those disagreements are. In addition to the formality of the dissertation, I have 40 years of experience in church leadership, and I'm a minister and ordained minister rather than pastor myself.
We have got a tremendous guest with us today. Marnell W. Love is with us. White people love God but hate church. He's with us today here on our big broadcast, coast to coast and border to border on iHeartRadio. And Marnell, this book, you've put a lot of time and effort into the book. What do you want readers to take away from your writing?
Well, what I want readers to take away is to identify some of the things that have them uncomfortable in church and look at some of the solutions that I have in there and how the church can turn around. And I'm saying this in a plural sense, can turn around, draw more people back into the church, uplift the faith of Christ, as well as determine how can they not only spread the gospel, but help people in the community that really need help, more than preaching to, but someone to maybe just sit with them, visit with them. If they don't have enough food, maybe the church or the congregation can bring food and substance or whatever these people may need to help them out. My specialty in ministry is serving those that cannot get out to a traditional church. And I call it in my book, the people that the church has forgotten. And I give you an example. One of my congregation members, she was in her church for 40 years, tithed, was there every time the door opened, served on multiple committees. And then when she became of age and too sick to go out to church, the church just sort of forgotten about her and her family. They didn't call, they didn't visit. There was really no touching basis to see if she was okay. The only thing that she was told was that they placed her on the prayer list. Now that's an insult to that person and to that person's entire family, because they've served that church faithfully for 40 years and then be forgotten about as though they were never there in the first place. So that's some of the things that are really hurting the church. And the way we treat our elderly and our disabled people who just cannot get out to do that. come up the church stairs and sit in a church setting when they desire so much for their pastor or for their deacons and church members to come and see them and say they remember them and ask what can they do for them, because they have served that church all of their adult lives.
Well, we are up against the clock here, my friend. We've got another interview we've got to get to. Our next guest is calling us. Before we get to the break here, how do we buy the book and find you online, my friend?